Hi everybody, we're seeing the Q&A is open up now.
If you're here, go ahead and send us a wave or say hi.
We're so glad we could be here with you for our second speaker of the HiTOPS 2021 Trans Youth Forum. Hi, I'm August. I'm 16 and my pronouns are he, they. This is going to be the second Trans Youth Forum I've not only attended but also helped organize.
Hi, my name is Layla. I am 13 years old. I use they, them pronouns. This is my first year at HiTOPS and first Trans Youth Forum.
We're here with a beautiful human who is a storyteller working at the intersection of theater and activism. We call her an activist.
Please give a warm welcome to Ianne Stewart.
Hi there, everybody.
Ian, thank you so much for taking your time to be here.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We wanted to let you introduce yourself with your pronouns and just a little bit about who you are.
All right. Thank you so much to HiTOPS for having me. Thank you, Layla and August. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Ianne Stewart. I use they, them, she, her pronouns. I'm currently on Lenape land. For an image description, I'm a light-skinned Black trans woman. I have my hair in a bun, some very quick makeup that I did, and a low-cut sweater, and I'm against a white backdrop. I am a Black, queer, trans feminine storyteller working at the intersection of theater and activism, and I am also the founder of the Ogre Project.
Here at HiTOPS, we always start each group with an icebreaker question. We thought it would be cool to ask each speaker the same question. So, if you could learn any skill instantly, what could it be?
Ooh, I think that as a performer, it would be to play the piano. I've always wanted to be able to like read music and play the piano and just make, I've been in musical theater for a lot of my life. So singing and being able to accompany myself would just be amazing. So I think that is what I will say as a performer. And then I think as an organizer and a human being who wants to just do better in the world, I would really love to be fluent in Black American Sign Language so that I can make, do more work around accessibility, justice work.
Cool. Okay, getting right into it. You founded the Ogre Project, which helps feed and provide resources such as therapy to the Black trans community. You created a space for members of the Black trans community to feel cared for and loved.
How did the motivation to start the Ogre Project come about, and how did you go about executing it from the ground up?
Well, that's a good question. In December of 2018, I was heading back home for the holidays, and I was reflecting on the fact that I was lucky enough to be able to go to a home and a place of origin where my family, my loved ones, all respected who I was. And I knew that for many of my sisters, siblings, and brothers, that was not the case. And so I wanted to create something that would hopefully alleviate some loneliness during the holiday season. And it's funny, we kind of, this is naturally and inherently food justice work, but for me, it's always been about building community and alleviating loneliness and hopefully making, someone in the world feel a little less lonely, because I feel like some of the most transformative conversations I've had have been with family around food, whether that be chosen or otherwise. And so I had the idea on a Sunday. That Monday, we reached out to our first chef. There was a co-organizer who's no longer with the organization, but who kind of was part of raising the money. We launched it on a Wednesday, and then I thought we'd raise like $500 and feed a couple people. And then by Friday, we had raised $6,000 in 3 days. And so we kind of just said, okay, we're going to run this thing until the wheels fall off. And I'm pleased to say the wheels are firmly in place.
That's so amazing. You also provide mental health resources within the Ogre Project. What about this resource is important for the community to access?
I think that for a while, I've thought about the fact that we are in this country currently going through a larger conversation around mental health, as particularly around youth. The anniversary of Blake Brockington's death, who was a Black trans man who unfortunately took his own life and was an incredible and beautiful spirit, just recently passed. And thinking about young people like yourselves and young people like Blake Brockington, who deserve so much more in this lifetime, and deserve so much more now. I think that we have this focus on, oh, do self-care this, do self-care that. And it's not about self-care that's capitalistic. It's about self-care that's like fully generative and going into therapy and things like that. And it's like, well, therapy is not really something that's accessible to everybody, either because you can't find culturally competent care or because you can't find someone who is able to sort of hold you in the way that you need to be held and the way you need to process these things. And so I wanted to make it, we need to make this thing as accessible as possible. The most marginalized among us need this resource, and there is no reason why we can't make that available by just paying for this, like just pay for the session, let somebody go. It's not about, let's make sure that everyone gets paid for their time, but let's also make sure that like we're making this thing as open a door as possible,
Yeah.
It seems like community is a strong value to you. How are you navigating the Ogre Project through this pandemic when we cannot physically be with our community and our support systems?
I think it's been really hard. I think that there's no real way to, and I would kind of like, I'm sure that y'all are all having this experience as well, especially as young people who are growing up. It's like, what connection looks like is so different these days. And I think all of us are rewiring ourselves. And so I don't know that I can say that we're doing it in the best way. I think that we do what we can. We just put out a program for Women's History Month to pay 20 Black trans women and 20 Black non-binary, or 20 Black trans women and non-binary femmes rent. And that's sort of a way that we're giving back to community. But it's sort of this thing where the thing that makes community so beautiful is the fact that we can gather and touch and breathe and hug and hold each other, at least for me. And I miss that. And I think all of us sort of do. And so, we sort of do everything that we can to, if I can't like hug you and hold you and put my eyes on you, at least I can give you something that will make the time that we have to spend away from each other that easier to bear.
You have talked about the statistic that Black trans women have a life expectancy of 32 years old, which is clearly indicative of something horrendous going on. Why do you think society generally treats transgender / non-conforming people inhumanely?
My partner would laugh at me that this has kind of become one of my little sayings that I do, because when you do so many interviews, you kind of certain questions you start to have the same sort of responses to, but it's no less true. That I think that just as we cannot ask Black people to undo racism because Black people are not the people who created racism, that is the responsibility of white people, we cannot also ask trans people to undo transphobia. We didn't create transphobia. Transphobia is something that cis people possess. It is something that some trans people have internalized for themselves. But as we do the work within ourselves to relieve ourselves of that internal thing that has been put in us, like that is the work of cis people to undo. I'm not afraid of trans people. I love trans people. I see us as divine. I see us as beautiful. I see us as just, and I love being trans. I think that is the most beautiful journey. It's a hard journey, but it's not hard because I'm trans. It's hard because I live in a transphobic society. And so there is no reason for me to start hating on myself. And when I'm like, but look at me, I'm fabulous. And look at all of us, we're fabulous. I don't think that we have to play the game of, who's more this, who's more that. Trans people are just wonderful. It's fabulous being trans. It's hard being trans. But not because we are trans, hard because the world has made it so.
That is so incredibly insightful of you. When did you first feel passionate about social justice and activism?
I think that I have always had a certain amount of, because I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, because I was a young, Black trans girl in Birmingham, Alabama, and in the 90s, when there wasn't as much, the language that y'all are growing up in today is incredible, and it's amazing that as we're probably not that far apart in age, and as far as like the growth that our community has experienced in terms of like visibility and and action around that visibility specifically, not just because we've always been hyper visible, but for us to actually be experiencing change. so I think growing up at that time, you know, there was so much around me that could never actually name me. And it was when I sort of found, so I think that in that way, when you grow up that way, you sort of always have this inherent sense of right and wrong, because I had to, because there's a vibe I had to tell myself, no, you're right. Who you are is right. What they say is wrong about you, and who you are is right. And so I think it wasn't, but as far as when I kind of found the name of like social justice work and activism, it wasn't until my sophomore year of college, when I came back from school in Illinois and went to Birmingham, Alabama, and really and started doing organizing work. I just kind of fell into it. I met this woman, Sarah Young, who kind of was like, hey, I think that you'd be great for this thing. We have great conversation. And I met other trans folks, and I met other, you know, young people who were being organizers. And I just found like, oh, I love this. I love being able to help. I love being able to be of service. And that just felt very important to me, to be like, hey, like, you know, I didn't have the easiest time growing up, but hopefully if I do this, someone like me who is also growing up and not having the best time, maybe I will make their day a little bit easier, or their month, or their year, whatever that is. And that feels worth it.
We wanted to talk a little about your performing career.
Mm-hmm.
How did you start out with acting, and what challenges have you faced being someone who is Black, queer, lesbian, and non-binary trans woman?
I started dancing at the age of 4. I was doing ballet pretty much up until I moved to New York, and now I have to get like kind of post-pandemic. That's one of my new goals, is to get back to dancing. But yeah, I started dancing at the age of 4, so I've kind of always been on a stage. I never have known any other life but like performing and telling stories, and as a Southern woman, that is just inherent to me, to tell story and to share story with the world. So I guess that's where my performance career started. But then I think when I first like did a show, like I went to a performing arts high school, and then I went and got my degree in musical theater. So my performing life has just always kind of been around me, but it sort of got formalized once I moved to New York and I was able to start auditioning professionally. And as far as like challenges that I've faced, I think that coming up in education, especially when you have educators who are unable to give name to who and what you are, it's really hard, because their implicit biases, they're kind of the things that they need to work on suddenly become things that they put for you to work on, you know? Suddenly, you know, I was never going to fit in the mold of a white cishet man, but that is what a racist, transphobic, and homophobic, you know, individual who has that within them and that is unexamined within them. Teachers are people, and they come with their own implicit biases. And so they start to instill the work that they need to do on themselves. They begin to make them projects for you to do. Suddenly I had to start to become more straight. Why? Why do I need to become more straight? This is fabulous being queer. It's wonderful. I love being a lesbian. Like, these is all great things that bring me joy and make me so happy. Something that makes me so happy cannot be wrong. It just can't be, you know, and maybe I'm a little bit of a pleasure seeker in that way. But I just think it's like, if it brings me this much joy and I'm not hurting anybody, it just can't be wrong. And that something has to be wrong with you at some point, you know, and just can't be wrong with me anymore, because I'm like, I've done the work. I've like been like, oh, is there something wrong with this joy that I'm feeling? Am I hurting anybody? Not really. So you're wildin', bye, you know? And I think that, and obviously growing up, I didn't have this same kind of strength. I'm now an adult, and I've been able to go to therapy and process and move on from what has happened to me in education systems. But I think growing up, that was kind of one of the hardest things. And now that I'm an actress out on my own with, you know, a team of people who work for me, I'm able to tell them, this is who I am. Go share that. And when I walk into a room, I'm able to say, this is who I am. Accept that, or get over yourself. Because I don't have time for anything else. I'm just going to be me. And that's my journey.
You are a choreographer, dancer, singer, actor, director, and teaching artist, among many other things. What is your favorite art form for you to do yourself, and why?
Ooh, it's performing. It is. That's my little heart song. I'm a triple Leo with a rising Sagittarius. There's a lot of fire here. I just love to I love to tell a good story, and I love to kind of gather everyone around a campfire and just be like, listen to this cool thing that I have to tell you. Let me take you on this journey. And there's just something so special and I don't know, just pure about that to me, that just like brings me so much joy to just like gather amongst community and let's go on an adventure together. I mean, I think kind of at the heart of every activist beats the heart of someone who is incredibly, you know, just like wants adventure in many ways, or want, like, you know, you cannot do this work if you don't have hope. We work so hard as activists and as organizers because we want to have hope that things can be better. And we want to have hope that we can be a part of making it better. Those are, you know, those are good qualities to have, I believe, you know, and I think that anyone who is working in the best way that they know how to make the world better, I think at the core of them, they want to do the right thing. And we can't all do the right thing, and we can't all get it right all the time, but we're doing our best. And I think that that's why performing, I think, to me, is just like the most pure thing that I can do. And there's so many other wonderful things around that as well, but just being honest and there and present and you is just kind of fantastic.
Lovely. You were on a show called Dash and Lily on Netflix. Did anyone out here watch it?
Y'all are so sweet. Thank you.
Of course. Was that your last performance debut?
Yes. That was the last thing that I did film-wise. In 2000, I think we wrapped in 2000. We wrapped in 2019, and then 2020 came around. And so that was a beautiful thing to kind of happen, and you know, in the holiday season, was to have that show that we had poured so much of ourselves into come to life, and it was a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was this your first mainstream performance?
No, I did some work on Pose. I was literally labeled pretty bartender. You know, which was like, okay, hi. You know, so I did a little bit of work on Pose, and then I did a guest star role on the Bold Type on Freeform. And that was, I was really, really proud of that work, and they're filming their last season right now. I'm just wishing so much joy to that team. I've met some beautiful people out of that experience.
What do you feel is your biggest success thus far as a performer?
Ooh, I think my biggest success thus far is that I stopped apologizing. I stopped apologizing for who I was, and I stopped asking for permission. And I just started saying, this is what's gonna happen, and it's gonna be great. And that's my biggest success, I think. There are many projects that have brought me joy and that have brought me greater sort of like commercial success, or given me more of like, you know, a wider audience, or like, you know, exposed me to, you know, a new audience, you know, such as like young people like yourselves. And like, I'm so glad that shows like Dash and Lily exist, where I can, you know, young people like yourselves can see, you know, adult trans folks like me living our lives and being human beings. But yeah, I think that really the success was just that I just stopped kind of like being afraid of taking up space in the room. And I was just like, I'm a big personality, and that's gonna be okay. So like, come on the ride. We can all be big personalities. Like, there is enough space. We can make enough space in the room if we just go to a different room, you know? We don't have to work in the same room we've always been working in. Let's just go to a different room where everyone can be all of themselves. And I think that was a solid choice I made.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us why you feel featuring trans figures is important for art, for society?
I think that there's an importance to, you know, even though in this country we systemically undervalue art, I mean, if anyone in this pandemic can tell me that they didn't binge watch a show, that they haven't binge watched a show, like, okay, amazing for you that you only read books for a year. But I mean, most of the people I know flicked on Netflix every now and then, you know, and that kind of thing. Like, who can say that a show that they binged again didn't like give them hope, or give them joy, or give them something to look forward to, or brighten their day? I think that that's beautiful and crucial and necessary. You know, artists are necessary. We can be healers as well. We can be part of people's self-care, part of people's escapism, you know? So yeah, I would just say, yeah, I would say that. I think, did I answer your question? I go on tangents, as you can see.
What is one of your favorite performances you have done, and what is your dream role you would love to have?
Ooh, my favorite performance I've done, I think the bull type was pretty special, I'll say, because I think I got to show a lot of different colors, and that was a very fun experience. I also got to travel out of the country for the first time because of that role, so that was a really lovely journey. And then who I would want to be, you know, I would love to do fantasy, actually. I would love to kind of just like surprise the dolls and come out and like be like, you know, the first like Black trans queer elf or something. Something just very fun like that. I don't know. It's like just something fun and nerdy that no one would be expecting from me. That's like not at all about like social justice work. That's just very like fun and honest and real. I think that'd be fun. I'd have a great time with that.
Definitely cannot say I expected that.
Exactly. No one would see it coming.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh, it's okay. We know there are people that are struggling with transitioning. When did you first realize that you were trans? What or who helped you discover and love who you are and how you identify?
So say the question one more time, please.
The first part is, when did you first realize you were trans?
Ooh, I think that I always knew who and how I wanted to look. I gave name to that feeling much later in life. Mm-hmm. I think I had a feeling since I was born, really. I just had a feeling. I was like, there is something I'm working on here. And I think something that I realized is that, you know, and something I'm realizing now as an adult doing kind of like my reparenting work, is that who I was if someone when I was a child had asked me, you know, who are you, instead of who do you like, if the focus had actually been on like who I was as a person, my life would have been completely different, because I would have been able to say and give name to this feeling. I would have been asked about that feeling, but no one asks, you know, queer and trans kids who they are. They just ask, oh, well, what are you doing with XYZ? Or who do you like? Oh, you're gay, or oh, you're this, or oh, you're that, or oh, it's a whatever. We're never allowed our autonomy to sort of self-identify and say something is different here. And the more that we kind of get to say something is different here, and then to pull at that thread and be supported through that process, the faster we get to kind of coming into the name of who we are, you know. And I think that is that feels important. That feels important, and that feels. I feel like that's probably when it happened. I think that when I knew that I was trans, that's a harder marker for me, because it's like, well, there was when I knew, like, in my body and in my soul, and then there's when I gave a name and said that's the right name for this thing. And that was when I was like, you know, 23, 22 or something like that. You know, that was at a much later time, but there was always something that was like, this is what I like. Not sure why I like it, but it works for me. And I kept on pulling at that thread.
Yeah. Was there anything or anyone that helped you discover and love who you are and how you identify?
Miss Janet Mock, of course, the legend, the one and only. Yeah, that woman means so much to me, and I'm always so like protective of that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like if she knows how much she means to me, it's gonna be so weird. It's gonna be like, you're a weirdo, and I'm like, but I stand so hard. But yeah, like through reading Redefining Realness, and like I experienced it as an audiobook rather than as an actual book, and I kind of prefer that experience because it was like more of it was like kind of like a matriarch was able to speak to me, you know, someone who was like older and wiser and had just like, could kind of give name to something that I was feeling. Not that she's like that much older than me, I guess, but it just was so powerful to hear her words. And there were so many parts of her story that were the first time that I had read my own story anywhere. And so she just gave me the possibility model of who I could be. And I said, I'm into it. Sounds good. Sign me up, you know? And so I think that I have to give a lot of gratitude for her. And also I want to also give gratitude because I think that we have to give gratitude to, I think that sometimes when we talk about queerness, we talk about it as if like, you know, when we come out is when we become who we are. And I think that the reality is that, you know, there's so many people who see us and we just weren't ready to be seen, you know? And so I have to always give a shout out to Peaches, who was an unhoused Black trans woman who I spoke to, who like came to our school to speak to us about her experience because we were doing a show that like focused on the experiences of unhoused youth. And she just pointed to me out of a crowd and like pulled me over. And she spoke to me like a sister. And it was the first invitation I had ever received into sisterhood in that way. And I don't know where Peaches is today. We never really connected after that. But I am so grateful to her because in Birmingham, Alabama, in the South, where I couldn't find anyone, she was a spark of something. And it was just that something that was like, it's again, pulling at that thread, like this is the direction to keep going. There is something about her that you see in yourself and that she sees herself in you. And that moment of sisterhood is so crucial and important for us, I think, for us to finally feel that this thing that we have on the inside is being seen by someone else and shared by someone else. And so I have to always give a shout out to Peaches, wherever she is and whatever she is doing, and just be so grateful that day that she saw me and that she gave me permission to be seen.
What is a struggle that you still face as a trans femme person of color, even with your fame?
Oh, goodness. Talking about my fame! You kids are killing me! But I would say that the reality I think that fame sometimes comes with is that it makes you feel further away from community. Because community doesn't always necessarily trust what fame is, and understandably so, because there have been many people who have come into fame and have abandoned who they were before. And especially because we're not in person anymore and we can't necessarily be seen. I think that sometimes fame can make it harder to connect with people in the same way because it does change things, you know? And it's very weird to be talking about it, and I never really do, but this is the HiTOPS Trans Youth Forum, and I can never lie to the children. I gotta tell the children as I see it and hopefully instill some wisdom. But it changes people around you. It changes you. You know, I didn't realize just how private of a person I was until, you know, I spoke in front of 15,000 people and then came home and was like, I have to sleep for 5 years. You know, I went from pandemic to 15,000 people. I am so drained, you know, and yet also what that moment meant, both for me as, you know, someone who wants to be of service and do better in the world, and also what it meant for me as someone who, you know, I'm not in this business of theater for no reason, you know. I do like to be seen. I do like to, you know, I'm a Leo. I like a moment, but not at the disservice of my community. I want to be seen, absolutely, and I want to have fun, and I want to experience joy, and I want to tell great stories, and I want to be acknowledged for that. And yeah, you know, I like a nice dress every now and then, and I like a femme moment and have a little photo shoot. That's cute, but that's all the small stuff. I think that the truth of it is that, you know, none of this is worth it if I can't bring what I am, like, you know, what this fame thing is giving me. If I can't bring that, if I can't bring, you know, these resources, if this doesn't make me more of service, then it's not worth it. And so I think that that's where the biggest struggle is, making sure that people always know, like, look, yes, my life is changing and I am changing with that life, but that life is never going to take me away from my devotion to being of service to my community. And like that, and that is a hard thing to keep yourself accountable to and make sure that people feel that. But I want to always be of service, and being of service is something that, you know, it means everything to me. I want to help. I want to make a difference, and any way that I can do that, I want to do. And if sometimes that also means that I need to be the one who backs up and is not heard from, but that I can support from the back. I'm happy being behind the scenes. I love that, actually. Especially now, I'm like, ooh, child, I don't have to be in the driver's seat. I could just be behind the scenes. Let's do it. Yes, don't see me, don't perceive me, you know. But you know, it's the twofold of it. There is a fun side to, you know, doing magazine shoots if you like that kind of thing. There is a fun side to walking red carpets. I'm sure I haven't done that yet, but you know, we shall see. There's a fun side to being like, oh, I'm in a #1 Netflix show. That's great. It is fun. It's nice. It makes you feel good. But the greater joy is knowing that with that comes the ability to say, all right, so here's how the game's going to actually be played. We're winning this time. We ain't going to lose this time. And I'm going to be a part of helping us make sure that we win. And if both of those things can't exist, if one is more than the other, it's just not worth it. It has to always be in conjunction with each other. If I open a door, that door is staying open and everyone's coming through. Let's get everybody in. Come on, let's go. We got a job now. If I got a Netflix show, we got a Netflix show, okay?
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
Did you have the support of your family when you came out?
I did, and I think that made all the difference in many ways. I think that as painful as kind of my education and like socialization process was as a child growing up in the Deep South, my mother never let me believe that she did not love me. We may have gone through struggles, but my mother always made it very clear that she loved me for exactly who I was, and however I came to be that person, that was the person that she loved. And that very small, and the other thing that she gave me was that she said, because I was adopted by white folks. And so she made it very clear, I don't know what Blackness is. I don't know what that is, but that is what you are. And you have to figure that out for yourself. And I did. And that permission to be independent, that permission to be curious, that permission to be tenacious at whatever age I was, you know, she said, if you want to wear this dress to school, you can do. I'll share this little childhood story that's kind of my favorite of mine. I was 6 years old. Oh, no, I was even younger. Basically, I decided that I wanted to be a Barbie princess for Halloween. That was what the doll was going to be giving. I just was like, I want a pink taffeta monstrosity. It's got to be a ball gown. I have to be Cinderella. It's going to be perfect. I see the vision. And my mom was like, I mean, okay, people at school might make fun of you. And I was like, that's fine. I'm going to be a princess. I want the big taffeta monstrosity. I'm going to be Cinderella. It's going to be everything. And we went to Party City. And you know how in Party City, they have at the back, you know, this like sort of closed off area for all the costumes and they can lift it up or whatever. We went to that and I said I told the lady what I wanted. And she said, oh, honey, you don't want that. That's for girls. And my mother says, without missing a beat, I just turned to her and I said, Mama, let's go to another store. And she said, and the lady said, okay, and got the dress because I was going to get my pink monstrosity, whatever it took, because I was going to be a princess. And I think that like, that can't happen unless you have a parent who's willing to be led by you. Like, it's like, okay, child, I don't quite understand it, but you ain't hurting nobody, so we just gonna do that thing, you know? And I think that, I think having that made all the difference, having a family that, I will say the women in my family specifically, and my grandfather. Other people came into the picture who were not supportive, but my mother and the matriarchs of my family were always, and they always held me very close. And so I'm grateful for them.
That's lovely. What advice do you have for trans or gender nonconforming youth that don't have support in their home?
It's a hard thing. And I think that we do a disservice to act like it's not. It's a hard thing. It's deep. And I think that, you know, there is a reason that we in the queer community have, and specifically in the trans community, lean so heavily on chosen family. Because we have the right, I think that if I could say anything, it's just believe in your ability to decide and determine who your family is for you. No one else gets to decide that. Decide who your family is, decide who you listen to, be tenacious, be audacious, have the audacity to say, nope, I know that some things are wrong, and I know the difference between right and wrong. And I know that I am not wrong. And I think that if you hold to that as hard as you can for as long as you can, and I know that some people that gets beaten out of them, and it's one of the greatest tragedies. We are currently seeing organized legislation against trans youth in sports, and outside of sports. Let's not act like it's just in sports. And it's absolutely disgusting that in a pandemic, a global pandemic that no state is handling effectively, that we are still on their minds. Cis people have got to start minding their business. To be quite frank, why are you worried about me? Why are you worried about our children? Leave us alone. Why are you psychotic? Like, leave us alone.
Agreed.
Leave us be. There is something so wrong with adults who are so concerned with children in this way. And y'all have got to do something about that. It's ugly. Do something about that. But stop taking it out on us and our kids. It's absolutely horrendous. And it's a hard weight to hold for all of us, I think. I am so grateful for the household that I grew up in. I'm so grateful that I could have safety even when I'm totally safe, that I had people who loved me and who instilled in me the determination to stay alive and stay true to who I was. And I think that that's just what I would say to youth who are in those situations. It sometimes does not get better. It sometimes stays bad. But what I can definitely tell you is that if that house doesn't work, another house will. You have the right to decide to leave where you are. And I'm not saying kids to run away. I'm not saying to do all that. I don't want anyone to take that word, but let's be reasonable with it. But what I'm saying is, when you come of age and you have the ability to step out on your own and reparent yourself, take care of yourself, and know that you were always worth it. And as much as possible, if you can say this to yourself, even if you are not in a home that makes you feel safe, just know that you are worth it. You are worth being here. You are worth being alive. You are worth being present. You are worth being all of yourself. You are worth fighting for. Even if you can't see it in the media, even if you can't see it in these lawmakers that we have quote unquote elected, please know that you are worth it and that you are worth fighting for and that you are going to be loved. You will be loved. And there are people like me, there are people like, Layla and August here who I believe will be a part of making sure that you feel that. Because we do have the ability to take care of our own, and we will take care of our own. That's what we got to do.
100%. I agree.
The theme of this forum is finding connections in isolation. Whether it was pre or post-COVID, have you ever needed to find a connection in isolation? And if so, how did you manage it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, I I met my partner and found love and found a very healing and beautiful kind of love through the pandemic, and that was a beautiful thing to happen. I found connection, just here, this is a connection right here where I'm meeting you two amazing human beings, and I'm feeling so grateful to be like, oh wow, the young people, they're gonna be okay, let's move through this thing. I think connections just through people's art, it's it's through Zoom, it's through what we do, it's we take what we did outside and now we need to do it through the computer. Do we miss what we did outside? Absolutely. But we'll get back there. And for the moment now, it's just about sometimes I just make connections just by watching videos that people have posted or watching art that people have posted. It's and I just allow my heart to be open to folks and say, that's a beautiful connection that I got to see and experience what you're offering. And just allowing that to be different, because that's what we have to do in all of this. I think. I don't know. That's how I'm doing it in all this, I should say.
Mm-hmm. We are full of gratitude for you today. Thank you for your honesty and openness.
We wanted to spend the last few moments going over some resources you guys can access.
Ianne, you shared some resources with us.
Alex is putting them up on the screen now. That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us, Ianne. It has been an honor and a huge thank you to all of our sponsors.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a really, really big pleasure. I really appreciate you both. And you're just awesome. Go be great. I'm so proud of you. Even though I just met you, I have no reason, but like, just proud. Just be great. Go do awesome things. And everyone who is watching, thank you so much for spending time with us. This is beautiful.
I feel like we know each other, so it's fine.
Absolutely, we can.
To you all of you at home, thank you for joining us. We hope you all learned something new. The HiTOPS Trans Youth Forum is taking a lunch break now, so go ahead and grab something to eat, stretch, tell your friends to join the youth forum. It's not too late to register.
Then come back at 2 p.m. when our friends Billy and Katie are interviewing the amazingly talented JJ Maley. You don't want to miss it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi.